Thank you. Good afternoon. I congratulate the organizer of the International Webinar on impact of COVID-19 on rural development. And I personally congratulate the Vice Chancellor of Munger University, who is also chief patron of this webinar, Professor Ranjit Kumar Verma, along with the Professor Hanuman Prasad Sharma, Vice Chancellor of SKM University, Jharkhand, and Colonel Vijay Thakur, Honorable Registrar of Munger University, and naturally the organizing secretary or convener of this webinar, Dr. Anil Kumar Thakur, and all the committee members of this webinar. I'm here to present before you the impact of COVID-19 on rural development. So, dear participants, before starting with this, we should know and the meaning and concept of the rural development. The term rural development is a subset of broader term of development, and this connotes overall development of rural areas with a view to improve the quality of life of the rural poor. This is very much important in this amid COVID-19, that this concern of the life of the rural poor, and in this sense, it is comprehensive and multidimensional concept encompassing the development of agriculture and allied activities, village and cottage industries, including crafts, socio-economic infrastructure and community services and facilities, and above all, the human resource development in the rural areas. The great concern is of human resource development in the rural areas. So, as a phenomena, rural development is an end result of transaction between various physical, technological, economic, socio-cultural, and institutional factors. So, as a discipline, it is a multidisciplinary in nature, representing an intersection of the agriculture, social, behavioral engineering, and management sciences. So this we have to understand this concept in a holistic manner when before talking of the impact of COVID-19 in this rural development area. So there is also long history earlier from 1928 when there was a Royal Commission on Agriculture, and that denotes the rural development. And that commission quotes that we cannot too strongly state our conviction that the directorship of agriculture advances must in a very great degree depend upon the suitability of officers appointed, the commissioner then said. And after that, in 1972, there was task force on integrated to develop the integrated rural development program, that is IRDP. So there's a long history behind this concept. And when we talk about the global perspective, dear friends, the World Bank defines rural development as a strategy designed to improve the economic and social life of a specific group of people, that is the rural poor. So in this pandemic, our focus should be on the rural poor only, because the rural development involves extending the benefits of development to the poorest among those who seek livelihood in the rural areas. Okay, and the group includes small scale farmers, tenants, and landless. So overall, as per our World Bank policy paper earlier predicted in 1975, they said that a national program of rural development should include a mix of activities, including projects to raise agricultural output, create new employment, improve health and education, expand communications, and improve housing. So since 1975, we are talking of this type of concept, but really we could not achieve uh, uh, towards this goal. So in this pandemic era, the real problem is rural India is all about jobs and consumption. Dear friends, agriculture, which is the predominant occupation of rural India, is still restricted to just 15 to 70% of GDP in terms of overall contribution. But It directly and indirectly employs more than 70% of all the India's workforce. And that share would be a lot higher in the rural areas. In other words, the rural households economy and demand generation is largely from dependent. So another aspect is the rural consumption pattern. And we all know the rural consumption story, that there is huge consumption theory working in the rural areas. And that's why when the consumption behavior pattern will change in the rural areas, the whole economy will be diminished. So let us talk about the impact of COVID. We all know, dear friends, that it is by now clear that the global COVID-19 pandemic had a wide-ranging impact on the world, from health, economics to globalization and manufacturing to rural areas. And earlier, the Asian Development Bank has estimated that there is a huge loss in the economy, near about to 4 trillion US dollar, that marks up to 5% of the GDP. And we all know the pre-pandemic, pre-COVID era, Indian economy was at the verge of diminishing. That diminished to the 5% of GDP. And then another blow comes in the form of COVID-19. Okay, so there is a huge impact on Indian economy also. And one estimate says that Indian economy was losing rupees 32,000 crore daily during the lockdown period. Uh, and when there is a very important survey conducted during this pandemic area till June 2020, along with 12 states, and in the survey conducted 5,000 rural households, and in this survey the output was that 68% of the population said that they had reduced food items in their meals. 50% said that they had reduced the number of times they were eating in a day. 24% of them had borrowed food grain. And when we talk about the income side, 22% of the households have borrowed money from extended family and 16% from money lenders. And besides that, 22% arranged for money by selling livestock. So this was a huge impact on the rural side. So, and also 14% of the mortgaged households item, according to this survey. And when in that survey, further asked that households surveyed whether they get ration through public distribution system. That is a huge satisfaction factory level for us. That's 84% said that they got ration through PDS, while 1/6 still remain deprived. So there is a great concern of those 1/6 population, rural population, who is still deprived, and government should move forward immediately to address this issue, dear friends. Okay, so naturally the catalyst of the economic revival is agriculture in this pandemic area, because agriculture with allied sectors is the largest source of livelihoods in India, and still 70% is dependent on this. And this during this lockdown period and during this pandemic era, agriculture was the silver line to revive of the economy, because as per projection and today's projection of RBI, our GDP will reduce to negative, and still uh, 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 our agriculture or rural economy will grow up to 2.5 to 1.8% of GDP. So the agriculture sector is actually protecting our Indian economy during this COVID-19. There are a lot of challenges, and we have to address those challenges. Most farmers also depend on non-farm and off-farm activities of their livelihood, as they may be field laborers for their farmers, work in the processing industries, or work in construction. And globally, international support of agriculture and rural development has been also lacking in recent years. So, going forward, one can foresee many challenges as farmers and farm laborers set out to rebuild their lives and livelihoods. And dear friends, migrants issues was also there, very much alarming during this COVID-19 era. And the migrant laborers who have managed to return will not be able to go back immediately. We all know this. And some may not wish to go back also, given the travails many may have endured following this lockdown period. And so there is a need for both relief and rehabilitation measures to help the affected and pick the threads again, overcomes the loss sustained and rebuild their lives. So we have to address this all, because we all know that the agriculture sector is expected to show positive growth despite the disruptions caused by the pandemic era. So if there's a positive growth, we have to full focus on this agriculture sector. And this does not guarantee a raise of farm income, because mass income outside the farm sector will drop in a big way due to economic contraction. So India's farmers have very little bargaining power, and when it comes to prices, and this has addressed by the government of India during this pandemic period, because we all know that MSP hike for paddy and main kharif crop is lowest in last 10 years. So we have to raise this MSME uh, um, minimum support prices, etc., because there's a huge impact of COVID-19 on rural economics. Number one is the first visible impact is a rural sector is on this agriculture supply chain. We all know that as per the all the published report, all the supply chain has been disrupted, because while the government has issued permits to trucks, allowing them to carry graziers, fruits, cereals, a large number of transporters are yet to receive their permits, and this has increased the time to taken for the farm products to reach the market. So this is a huge impact. And the second impact on COVID-19 is the delay in showing the harvesting of the crops due to unavailability of products such as seeds, tractors, ancillary support, medicines for crop protection. The third impact of COVID-19 is they expect job cuts in the agriculture sector. As per the government, there are nearly 9 crore farmers along with a similar number landless agricultural laborers. And the fourth big impact is the complete shutdown of the exports, dear friends, because India has been a major exporter of crops. As per APEDA, India's overall agri exports in 2018-19 were to be tuned about rupees 685 billion. So the fourth impact was also huge impact when the shutdown export is there. And the fifth impact is also very much important related with the rural development area, that is impact on MSMEs and SMEs and cottage industries. I will not elaborate due to the constraint of time. And the sixth impact is the prediction of weak consumption trend post COVID-19. Once things return to normal, the primary focus of people would be secure jobs and get their business going. So dear friends, overall, what economics and social effects on rural regions in COVID-19 era, this we have to think very, very firmly, because a large share of population who are at higher risk of severe illness, notable the elderly and the poor, lives in the poor areas. And we have a much less diversified economy, a high share of workers in essential jobs, that is agriculture, food processing, etc., coupled with a limited capability to undertake these jobs from home, because in urban areas we can do this, but in rural areas this is lacking. So lower incomes and lower savings may have forced rural people to continue to work and or not visit the hospital when needed. So this we have to address, because there's a huge difference between rural population and urban population. So health centers that are typically not well suited for dealing with COVID-19, we have to make them in the rural areas. And large distance to access hospitals, testing centers, etc., is also a problem, because a large digital divide with lower accessibility to internet, both in the coverage and connection speed, and fewer people with adequate device and the required skill to use them. So remember, this all is the problem regarding the rural economy or rural development. So there's an impact on migrants labor, which earlier we have talked a lot in the sense of huge research. I will not talk them. But what government have done? Government had announced the package in term of stimuli, monetary and reforms, and for the reform, perform and transform the economy. And the philosophy behind the government पैकेज is जान से लेकर जग तक, as Prime Minister Modi announced on 12th May, and that resulted in the Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan, that is Self-Reliant India Mission Economic Package. And this terminology is very much relevant for the rural development or rural economy, because in 20, more than 20 lakh crore package, the philosophy behind this package is an economic ideology which promotes economic self-sufficiency through four major reforms in YEL, that is land, labor, liquidity and law reform, which five pillars are performed, that is economy, infrastructure, system, demography and demand. And the important thing is how to transform this package That is the important for the sake of rural economy of rural development program, that is through vocal for local. And this is terminology we have to grab for the sake of development of the rural economy. So how to execute rural, local manufacturing, and how to execute MSMEs and cottage industries. So this is the terminology for reform. So dear friends, directly from package, all the farmers, migrants, and state vendors have been benefited. I will not go for that. And government's efforts for rural India is also very much enormous, because the government of India took substantive measures to reach rural India, utilizing Jandhan Yojana, which credited 500 rupees to bank account to the poor women. We all know this. And under the aegis of PM Kisan scheme, 2,000 rupees credited to the accounts of all the farmers. As in the state of reduced economic activities, increasing the amount will help the people to cover their necessities. This is very less, but this is a very welcome step in regarding the government scheme. And we all know the role of local self-government is significant for assisting people with the help of ASHA workers and civil society groups. So a well-equipped public distribution system can assure the appropriate delivery of free ration by following the social distancing in this area. So government has done, but we have to make our joint efforts to implement these all things, because we all know the relocation of Manrega was there, and government has also increased the allocation of Manrega by rupees 40,000 crore in during this COVID-19. And this can change only if the government decide to go vocal for workers. This can transform in the form of economics when we will go vocal for the all the workers. So when we bifurcate this package, almost all the funds have gone to the cluster-based farming, mat sampada, fish production, vaccination of cattle, buffaloes, animal husbandries, herbal cultivation, beekeeping, and many all. So we are not here to bifurcate, but Prime Minister of India told us that agriculture is the silver line of during this pandemic 19 that has protected the Indian economy in this crisis, because the agriculture was expected to be the only silver lining in the economy in the current financial year. This is accepted by the government of India. We all know. So Prime Minister re-announced for the poor of 80 crore of India's poorest, with the government's plan to spend rupees 90,000 more on expediting the ration scheme through Pradhan Mantri Garib Yojana till November 2020. This is all done by the government of India for the rural poor. So this we have to accept, dear friends, but this is less. We have to do more for the rural development, because risk of spread is there. The risk of spread is rural areas heightened uh, till date. This is due to numbers of factors, including lack of awareness, a limited supply of clean water, low levels of nutrition, and most importantly, ill-equipped and insufficient public health centers and district hospitals. This is a most constantly, because the informal industry cities being badly affected has resulted in loss of rural income, and slowed down economic activity in urban area has an effect on rural areas as well. So we have to think over this all sec, because uh, uh, the informal industry in cities being badly affected has resulted the loss of rural income also. What's more, massive layoffs and lack of relief measures are pushing migrants to return to their village, which would increase the risk of spread to the virus also. So there are a lot of observation. So we have to think of poor rural communities, and particulars vulnerable peoples. And lots of studies were there, but we have to think all those schemes at present running by the government, that is Sabki Yojana, Sabka Vikas, Gram Swaraj Abhiyan, Disha, Mission Antyodaya, Manrega, Rurban, Saga, Diksha, etc. This should be implemented in a holistic manner during this pandemic ilaka, because there is a 12% of deficiency of primary health centers and 50% of community health centers across the rural India, according to government of India. As rural workers are majority daily wage earners, the PSCs far from the rural settings compels them to consult private practitioners. So this is a major things we have to address. This is an immediate challenge, and also we have a great opportunities that revisiting globalization of production chains could also open our new opportunities in some rural areas, dear friends. So there's a lot of um, uh, challenges, but there are some I am here to suggest before you. The agro and allied industry should receive additional support to ensure their functional so as to help the farmers channelize their harvest and prevent them from damaged elevated fetch up the weak values. And as per the Dalwai Committee report 2019 suggested that increase to 1% of research on the agriculture, yet there has been no move to do so. So we have to more invest on agriculture research for the sake of higher the income of the rural people. Because without spending more on research, we simply will not leave a strong agriculture sector for the next generation of Indians, dear friends. So there is also, I am here providing you suggestions for land use. We must focus on our land use policies. We have the technology to discern this all. We must start focusing on promoting such scientific use of land, using the best practices from the countries that we are cooperating with, would benefit our farmers. We must look the tailor making farmers policies at the local level, especially when it comes to the land use. So dear friends, the COVID-19 lockdown, if anything, has shown us the vast inequalities between urban and rural India. So we are, this is a urgent need to fill these gaps after this COVID-19 period. So this all should only be implemented by the Atmanirbhar through Swadeshi model, because we all know uh, uh, that this is the right time that we must focus on our farmers and rural India through Swadeshi model. And the game changer is the latest formulation is central law of ensure adequate choice to farmers to sell agriculture and produce at attractive prices, barrier free interstate trade, and framework for e-trading to agriculture produce. This will be the game changer in the post-COVID area. I welcome this stage. So for the revival of rural economy, we have to trace the opportunities uh, our through our tracing the rural wealth, vocal to local to global. Make in rural India. I am urging before government, make in rural India. We have to trace village economy. We have to trace village tourism, dear friends. And for that, the product factors of production should be land, labor, capital, and organization. And our economic flow should be consumption, production, distribution, and economic philosophy through our belief, through our livelihood, through our festivals and rituals, and through man in the center. So this is how I am here to present before you. Thank you very much for your kind cooperation and patiently hearing. Thank you.